Hey guys, today we started dealing with naming and drawing of geometric objects. We're going to talk about those right now and fill in the table. You should have a copy of this available on the blog, so you could go ahead and download it and fill it in. The first object that we're going to talk about is a point, and a point is symbolized by just simply a dot, and you're all familiar with that. We would call it capital P or capital M or capital anything. Any capital letter is referring to a point, as long as it's a regular print letter, not a script letter. Anytime we have a point, that is the only way we can really talk about it. We will call this point P. You do not have to write the word point in front of it. If you just talk about P, you will assume that that is a point. Now, a point has no length, no width, and no height. It is what we call a zero-dimensional object. It is very, 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 very small, and it is just symbolized by that dot. Now, a very common geometric shape that we talk about is a line, and there's lots of ways to name a line. We have a picture of this line right here with several points on it. And the most common ways to name a line are either 2 points that are on the line or a lowercase cursive letter. So this line has a lowercase cursive letter next to it, and that is line L. We can call this just L if we wanted to. You can write the word line in front of it, but you don't have to. Now, the way to name a line by 2 points is by naming those 2 points, in this case R and B, our 2 points that are on the line, and drawing a little line with arrows over top of that, line RB. It does not matter the order which you put the points or even what points you select. We could call this line BR, and that would be exactly the same line. It is not going a different direction or anything like that. Any combination of points that are on the line would also work. For instance, RC or CR are exactly the same line as well, even though it uses different points. Now, a line is similar to a point in that it has no width and no height, but it has an infinite length. An infinite length meaning that it goes on forever in both directions. So it doesn't ever stop. Unlike a line segment does have a finite length. I already have 2 names over here, and that says DQ or QD. A line segment is always named by its endpoints. So if you're going to draw a picture of line segment DQ, then you would have to draw the line stopping at point D and point Q. It does not matter if there are other points in the middle of the line. We would still call it either DQ or QD. Now, a line segment has no width and no height, but it has what is called a finite length. And that is a line segment stops. You can measure a line segment. Even if it's extremely long, you could theoretically measure it. A line you could not measure because it goes on forever. Now, a ray, just like a line segment, is infinite. It goes on forever, but the thing is, a ray has a starting point. Now, this description over here talks about a specific type of ray. It says a ray that starts at point B and goes through the point K. So if I'm going to draw a ray, I have to have a point on the ray, and it starts at B and goes through K. This is ray BK. The only name that you can give this ray is ray BK. The order very much does matter. You have to name the starting place first. B goes first, and then K. You cannot call this ray KB, because that ray would be going in the opposite direction. It would be starting at K and going through B. Now we come to an angle. Now, an angle is something that is a little bit confused a lot of the time. A lot of people think the angle is made up by these 2 lines, and that is the physical shape of an angle. But an angle is not the lines. The lines are part of the angle, but the angle itself is really just how much change in direction that there is between those 2 lines. There are several ways to name an angle. The simplest of the ways to name an angle is by the number that is in the corner of the angle. In this case, we have a little 1 in the corner down here. We would call this angle 1. That is the angle symbol. It looks a lot like the less than symbol, but it's a little flat on one side. And so that says angle 1. This is the most simple and straightforward way to name an angle. But other ways that we can name the angle is by 3 letters. That is, starting at a point that is on one of the sides, going to the vertex, and then going to a point on the other side. So since there are 3 points here, and this has got a point A, a point B, and a point C, we could call this angle ABC. We could also call this angle CBA. It does not matter the order in which you put those letters, as long as the B is in the middle. One last thing that's not on this page, a way to name an angle that only works sometimes, is to name the angle by the vertex itself. You could call this angle B, but this only works if there's only one angle coming out of the point B. If this picture was slightly modified and we had another point D out here, we could no longer call this angle B because there are actually 3 angles coming out of angle B. We have angle 1 that we have originally, we have the second angle that we have formed by putting this other line, and then we have a third angle, which is angles 1 and 2 put together. So it is not specific enough to say angle B if there's more than one angle with that vertex. That's why naming it with 3 letters is probably the best if there is no number given to it. Now, on the lower part of this page, we have finding geometric objects in a picture. This is a very simple example of finding geometric objects. There's one definition that we're going to need to know for this, which is this word collinear. We have it up at the top. Collinear just means that the points are contained by a line. Contained by a line. So, for instance, these 3 points would be collinear because I could draw a straight line going through those 3 points. Any points that are in a line are considered collinear. Now, this geometric objects example has several things that have multiple answers that would be considered correct, and I will take any of them. So we're just going to go through these looking at this picture, and we are going to find a point. Any point. Well, there's lots of points on this picture. One point would be A, another point would be B, another point would be C, and another point would be D. You only have to write down one of these because it says to find any point. Likewise, it says find any angle. Okay, well there are several angles in this picture as well. You just got to pick one of them. So I'm going to talk about this angle here. We'll call that angle 2 because it's easier to write angle 2. You could use the letters if you would like. That's a pretty simple answer. The next thing that it asks me to talk about is a 3-letter name for angle 1. So first we've got to find angle 1. Well, here's angle 1. And I need to find a 3-letter angle or 3-letter name for that angle. So that's going to start here, go to B, and then go to D. It doesn't matter that it continues on forever. The angle itself is angle 1. And we can call this either ABD or we could call this angle DBA. It is important that we write the little angle symbol in front of it because later on we're going to be dealing with triangles. And if you called it ABD, well, I don't know if you're talking about triangle ABD or angle ABD. I don't really know. So it's important to write the little angle symbol in front of it when you're talking about an angle. Any line segment. There are lots of line segments in this picture. It does not matter which one you pick. I'm going to go ahead and select this guy from A to C. Line segment AC. But you could have gone with AB or BD or BC. There's lots of line segments, and it does not matter which order you put them in. The next thing that it's talking about is a ray. A ray starts at a point and goes forever in one direction. There's an obvious ray, which is BD. You would have to name that starting at B and going in the direction of D. And then another obvious ray, which is BC. So that starts at B and goes in the direction of C. One that many people miss is actually simple is also AC. That is another ray. Starts at A and goes in the direction of C. Next thing it asks me for is 3 collinear points. That is 3 points in a line, and there is only one possible answer. It does not matter which order you put these points in, A, B, and C. So A, B, and C are 3 collinear points, 3 points in a line. And the last thing that it asks me for is another name for angle CBD. So CBD, it starts at C, goes in the direction of B, and then goes out to D. So that would be this angle right here. Now that angle is called angle 2. You could have very simply also called this angle DBC without even looking at the picture itself, because it has got to be the same angle because it uses the same vertex and the same 2 endpoints on the sides. So these are all the answers for that particular section. You are asked to then go on and do your own questions down here. Here's a picture. It's much more complicated, and there are several questions about that picture. Some of these can be kind of tricky. I'm just going to go ahead and do one of them. It is going to be number 15. Number 15 was asked about a lot. It says, which is longer, N or CG? So I'm going to go to this picture, and I'm going to find these two objects. Okay, well, N. N refers to this line right here. So here's N. Arrows on the ends. And then it asked me about CG. And it's simply asking the question, which is longer? Now, if I just took an actual ruler and measured this, it should be pretty clear that N is drawn longer than CG. But the thing is, N is a line. The line goes on forever. Even though I can't draw it forever, it goes on forever. So the question is, am I referring to CG, the line segment? Or am I referring to CG, the line itself? And the only way to be able to tell that is by looking at the way that it's written. It is asking me to find CG, and it has a little actual line with arrows above it. So it is referring to CG, the line. Now, even though in the picture that CG is clearly shorter than line N, they both go on forever, and therefore they are the same length.